All right, everyone. Welcome to chapter 11, the ISIS papers, the keys to the colors. Does anyone have any questions about the chapter? Or I have a question for you guys. If you guys have partaked in smoking cigarettes before or cigars before, how did you feel smoking it? You know.
I tried smoking a cigarette once. Um, I would say maybe like 14 or 15 years old. I think by then I'd already been introduced to Mary Jane, so I didn't see any point in smoking that. Um, but yeah, overall I didn't like it, didn't enjoy it. Thought it was very gross, so I just never bothered to do it.
My first reaction to smoking cigarettes is probably similar to yours. When I think I was like 14 as well, my friend had just like stolen one from her dad, and then we smoked it, and I just coughed the whole time, and I didn't try it again until I guess I was 21, and it was to smoke weed. And over here in the UK, that's like how we smoke Mary Jane. So yeah, that was the only reason for cigarette use, I would say.
Ironically, I have never smoked. Well, I'm capping right now. I used to like when I used to like go to the club a lot. I used to smoke club cigarettes, like not like a chain smoker, but like I would have one like after, like if I go out or something, I would have like one, like literally just one, like because I like the way they smelled. Like I like some of those black club ones. I used to think they were really cool. Like, but this was like years ago. But I've never smoked like Newports or Marlboros, like cigarettes like that, because I never forget when I was a kid. My mom, her ex husband's family used to live in Victorville, ironically. So we went out to visit them, and her ex husband, his little brother, like his younger brother, stole one of his cigarettes and almost had a fucking asthma attack. And he was outside coughing hard as shit. His eyes were all red. He was crying and damn near throwing up. I was like, yikes. It's like a big fat fucking L to me. So I never have been tempted since that time. I never was before then, but after seeing that, I was like, I don't want to do shit that makes me feel like that at all. So I'm really straight on that shit. But the way I felt, I didn't feel like anything. I just think like it was like the menthol kind of effect. It was kind of relaxing a little bit, but not that relaxing. Not relaxing enough for me to like buy a pack every fucking day for the rest of my life. Like, I mean, no disrespect to people who who crush a pack a day and shit, but I never felt the need to continue. It was very much like a segmented part of my life, but I had no real feelings towards it at all, honestly.
Yeah,
Right.
like oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna answer the question. So when I first moved to Europe, like it was hard for me like to find a connect to sell other smokable things. So I started smoking tea. Well, not tea, but like herbs, and like just like healthy herbs. And then like that became really messy making every day, and like it was sustainable, but it was really messy, and I had tea all over my floor and stuff all the time. So eventually, I just started like rolling my own cigarettes. And I do know one thing is that the moment I started rolling my own cigarettes and smoking tobacco outside of my school, that's when like I started to get approached by like the majority of the people in that area, because all of them literally walk around with little white cigarettes in their mouth 24/7. Like I see someone with a white cigarette in their mouth every single day, at all times of the day.
Hey Trey, do you think that was like a part of assimilation? Like, do you think they approached you more because they thought you were like one of them now?
Yeah, I definitely think that, because first I was like smoking my herbals, and they were like, "What is that?" And I was like, "It's not tobacco. It's not cancerogenic." So yeah, I definitely do think there's a strong association with like power. 'Cause I do feel like they feel cooler And I remember the first time I smoked a cigarette. I was my very first time smoking a cigarette. I was like 23, I think, and I was in Istanbul, and my driver was smoking cigarettes, and then he offered me one, and I was like, why not? I'm in a different country. I never smoked a cigarette before. So I started smoking it, and I did feel something. I felt like cool, but of course I felt like it was nasty. It was like really harsh and not enjoyable, but it did make me like feel like a sense of like coolness. I can't say power because I don't think it was power, but I definitely felt something.
I must admit, that's a pretty cool fucking story. For your
Yeah.
first cigarette. I was in Istanbul, no big fucking deal. Smoking a cigarette with my driver.
Matt, you wanted to share something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, like when I first smoked a cigarette, it was a clove, and I was like 18, and I remember like, I had of course grown up watching all those Dare commercials where they're like, you smoke one cigarette, you're gonna smoke 10 packs a day forever, and I was shocked because after I smoked it, I didn't care. I was just like, oh, I don't feel like doing this again, but I did do it again when I would be like drunk. And a few years later, when I was at Berkeley, I did like get a pack, kind of for like a similar reason, like Trey was saying, is that I felt cool, quote unquote cool. I think mostly because you see that in movies or you see like bands do that. But especially because I have asthma, like I've never felt like addicted to it, or I've never felt like it's something where I just crave.
Yeah, it's not a part of your repertoire for shit.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I used to. Whenever I have been a smoker, I never. I don't know, probably like it never really made me feel any like thing mentally, but I did do it because I thought it was just something like a cool aesthetic. It's like, okay, this is a good reason to go outside. I'm not gonna go outside and do nothing. So I would go outside, and then look cool, smoking a cigarette, smoking a tiny white phallic symbol, and also watching like movies like Drive, no, not Drive, yeah, but watch movies where like smoking is cool, they're smoking and they're doing cool shit, and
at least in Drive, Ryan Gosling just has a little pick in his mouth most of the time.
Yeah, like a little phallic symbol still, it's like some indication, like. So yeah, and why? Yeah, because Hollywood made smoking cool.
Smoking is cool, guys.
All right, so does anyone want to share any notes from chapter 11? Oh, and actually, can everyone give their synopsis of chapter 11 if you read it? Just tell me what you think it was about. I shall start. So chapter 11, my short synopsis was about the symbolism and smoking objects and just what that means, what it could mean in a culture where like phallic symbols are very important, and where putting phallic symbols in our mouths could be interpreted in like various ways depending on what you know about history, and much more importantly like white history and how white dominators have dominated the planet, and how they've dominated the planet. So it basically like gives us an understanding of, okay, wow, this is one manifestation of how like their nature has manifested into like this gesture of a sort. And anyone want to give their synopsis? Chapter 11.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to ask that one more time about that question, because I couldn't really you couldn't speak very fast.
Give a summary. Just give a summary of chapter 11.
All right, let me see. I'm gonna my notes because I wrote some notes here.
All right,
Whoever wants to go can go first.
All right. So for me, like I really took away a lot, but the most simplistic way of summarizing it for me would be the understanding that through the 9 areas of our behavior patterns, like logic, speech, emotional response, and all those things. Within that, there's these subconscious and conscious symbolic behavioral patterns that we take on and that white people demonstrate and take on, aka like everything is being associated with like power or lack of power or inadequacy and in response to their genetics. It was just like awesomely fascinating. Pass it to Ezekiel.
So the chapter is pretty interesting. It was a lot like the same chapter with guns and guns as symbolism. One thing that I took away from it, well, actually, let me back up a little bit. The chapter was a lot like the guns and as symbols, and just kind of exposing how smoking objects, what that symbolizes. For me, it gives me a better understanding as to why things like guns that kill people, so many people, smoking objects that kill so many people, and the reason why, for some reason, it's so hard to get rid of these things when it seems so simple. So that was one thing I took from it. She just kind of exposes it and gives me a better understanding as to why we can't get rid of some of these symbols or some of these activities. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Ash. I know she knew it was coming.
Yeah, I agree with what most people were saying. She talks about cigarettes as phallic symbols and like the rituals behind them, and she compares that to like cigars. And yeah, I'll pass it to Matt.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I summed up the chapter too. It seemed like she was saying that like cigarettes and cigars are phallic and guns are as well. I'll pass that to Trey.
Trey, I think Trey already read it.
Oh, you went? Okay.
I'll go.
Okay, Jai, you go.
Sorry about that, y'all. But shit, when I was reading this chapter, let me go to my notes real fast. I wrote it down. Sorry. The main thing that jumped out to me at the beginning was that just about how you have to understand the root cause of what's happening in order for you to understand everything else. Like you can't, like the whole concept of viewing. Sorry, fuck. I'm sorry. The whole concept of viewing like cigarettes or cigars or guns or fucking, this chapter said ties or coattails. Viewing any of these things as phallic symbols, it's not even something that you could begin to do unless you understand, what you're looking for. And I think this is just another chapter, just like any other chapter, that's shedding light on the fact that people don't know what to look for because they haven't been trained to look for these things. And they just go over the heads of people because they just don't take the time to know. So that's what I'm taking just from the jump. I mean, I wrote more intricate notes, but my initial note was that. Oh, and I'll pass it to
That's everyone, I believe. That's everyone.
Oh shit. Okay,
Mary, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, everybody's more or less summarized everything that I could take from the chapter. What I really appreciate about this chapter is the way that it just kind of just holds in the previous chapters together and just highlights in further detail the relationship between like smoking and basically the rituals of smoking and what that basically relates to. And also for me, I like the way that she just basically mentions at the end how could you basically not have expected us to be able to like decode or see this, but like it's the inadequacy is built within the system, it's built within the board games, it's in almost every Western tradition that takes place, especially if it harms you and we take place in it. You should know it's rooted in white supremacy.
Yeah, I
Totally
think
agree.
I think I want to read this part because like it reminds me of what Jair just said. How like to understand the root, you have to understand the root, but you also have to have like something to like be able to like your measure. Like, what are you measuring this by? And this is where the concept of the unified field theory comes in, and I've been applying this to mostly everything, and it's been like pretty much accurate, you know, and me contextualizing what's going on, what's happening. And I think is really important to echo that phrase, white supremacy, racism, what it is and how it works, you know, and that's what we're understanding and dissecting. And if we understand what it is and how it works, we're able to, you know, process most things happening on planet Earth. So I'm going to read this. And it says, once the concept of a unified field theory of behavior or evolved system of behavior is understood adequately, all major behavior patterns that develop within the total behavioral system context are seen as having both meaning and function within the total behavioral system. So I think it's really important that we understand white supremacy as it being a system, but we have to understand that within the system, everything within that system has to exist to support the system. You know, nothing is independent of the system. It all, in some way, has to refine or maintain white supremacy. And I think that's what a lot of people love to forget or don't know. So, any comments, questions?
Oh, one thing
Yeah.
I wanted to.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you can go, Matt. I'll just go.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that one thing I appreciated about the chapter is I appreciate that she made a distinction in that she was focusing on cigarettes and cigars, because cigarettes and cigars are primarily, I believe, European inventions. They came around the 18th century. Um, and whereas like smoking from pipes, that sort of thing, I mean, that's been around for like thousands of years. That's been around in like Aztec societies, with the Mayans, with all kinds of different civilizations. So that's just one little thing that I thought was cool about the chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back to how all of it is rooted in racism, white supremacy. Like basically, if you look at everything in context with the unified field theory, like as I was reading about the smoking objects being phallic symbols, it really not it didn't trigger me or nothing. It just like made me realize and understand that it's just all very much connected. And even the fact that, and when they're making the cigars, it was known that it was even rolled between the legs of like Cuban women, and how certain like political figures are like never like for example Fidel Castro, who considered himself white, was never seen without a cigar in his mouth. You know, and this is coming from someone who considers himself white, and also how before the embargo on Cuba, JFK had ordered like thousands of Cuban cigars, and how it was reported that Winston Churchill smoked over 300,000 cigars. So, like, looking at everything in within context, I'm able to see that, like, white men have like a strong symbolic, just like perception of their like genitals and their lack of like, you know, their lack of efficient genes. Sorry, if that was like really long winded, but just, that's what I thought about it.
Yeah, I agree. It's so funny that I was just mentioning this, but it's so funny that you know, the cigarette is like a thin, you know, and the cigar is like
Yeah.
fat, you know, and the cigarette is white, and the cigar is like brown or black. So white people really like whenever they're comparing themselves to like other people symbolically, it's shown that like they like are projecting like inferiority for sure. And if you understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, you can understand that this is happening because white people have a genetic recessive trait which makes their skin white, and they are subconsciously or consciously aware that that makes them genetically recessive, and they view that as like being like negative, you know, due to like their history behind that. But none doesn't justify them creating this hell system that we all are forced to live under. But geez, small cigarettes and small white golf balls, you know, all attacking either the symbolic image or self-negating by ingesting. So, comments?
Yeah. I also thought it was very interesting in the 1976 they had this magazine that was advertising cigarettes, and they kept using the word more. And
Yeah.
considering the unified theory, like if it sounds like the word, but it's saying a different word, it still means that other word that you're subconsciously hearing. Because that's how that's basically how they trick and condition and control the majority of the world's population's brain computer, I believe, is the subconscious. Um, I think like you can only say people can only receive so much physical conscious information, but when their subconscious is tapped into, they're really
They're
programmable.
hella
That's
receptive.
always been my theory.
Yeah, they're extremely
Yeah,
receptive of some. It's easy to be accepting of symbols you don't know that are fucking being flashed in your face. It's hella easy to
Yeah,
accept things
like
you don't know. They even talked about like that low key ties into. I don't want to jump the gun too much, but at the beginning of chapter 13, they were talking.
yeah, jumping the gun a little bit too. Okay, let's stay on this chapter for now.
All right, for sure. Okay.
Okay, so let me read this part from one page 150. Understanding the above symbolism will explain further an advertisement for more cigarettes printed in December 9th, 1976. The issue of a New York Times magazine, which read as follows: white isn't more white because more is burnished brown to make its longer, leaner design look as good as it tastes. And when it comes to the taste of the more, you can enjoy its smooth mildness longer because the more's burn slower, so more doesn't end up with just looks. There's lots of good taste as well. It's like any really good cigarette, only it's more. This ad carries an even greater significance because of the great emphasis placed on oral sex by the white supremacy system culture, in contrast to the behaviors of non-white peoples. So, yeah, really, really, really bizarre.
And remember, there's a whole industry who are profiting off people feeling these sense of inadequacies and purchasing cigarettes to and placing this image of it making you feel more masculine. Like there's so many campaigns that's been done throughout the centuries attached to, I think I mentioned this before, attached to like feminist movements of saying the torches of freedom and how you can be independent and smoke, and it's a sign of basically power. So advertising it to women as a way to appeal to more masculine as well.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Oh, no matter like that, no matter how they work, the tricky ass marketing and advertisement always makes it so that white men can come out on top. Like that even what you were saying, Mary, about cigarettes having commercials to appeal specifically to women. That's just like how these companies are coming out today, in favor of the Black Lives Matter movement, when historically they've been quiet as a fucking church mouse and have had nothing to say about it up until this point. It's the same logic and principle for sure.
But you gotta, yeah, from context, Black Lives Matter is only getting endorsed because it's like a non-combative initiative. It's pretty much complacent. White supremacy doesn't really see economic liberation being something that Black people are deserving because it's not even in their demands. So
yeah, I'm just saying.
Black Lives Matter.
I'm just saying that the same way that the cigarettes are being marketed.
Yeah, you got it. I think we understood. But I think Trey was just saying that too. Can I read this? It's and want to hear you guys' thoughts on this part. If indeed the basic dilemma in the white supremacy system and culture is genital and genetic inadequacy, and the objects and acts symbolic of ingesting more phallics were banned, what behavioral substitutes will be suggested that could solve the basic anxiety-provoking dilemma of white genetic annihilation? Perhaps genital transplant surgery from black males to white. Hopefully, not frank cannibalism. So, what do you think would happen if we tried to take like ban cigarettes? Ban people from smoking. Not that this is a constructive thing to try to do, but
It will be just like the situation where people don't like. It'll be the same situation, just like how people feel about the mask. People would be out in the fucking streets, ready to fucking fight behind their cigarettes. People would literally. I believe in my heart that people would fucking march up and down the streets, protest from. People will care. People care more about their ability to smoke cigarettes than they care about other people's lives. Like that, I have no confidence that the American people will not fucking revolt if we told them they couldn't smoke cigarettes.
do you think black people will participate and try?
Absolutely, yes, yep.
Absolutely.
I don't want to believe that they will, but they will. Just like everybody else who smokes cigarettes.
We've been conditioned to be extremely pleasure-seeking.
And cigarettes and in addition to them being phallic symbols, they're also literally addictive. People are addicted to the chemicals in these fucking like cigarettes and these cigars. They like have it's like it'll fuck with their like. I don't know if you ever knew anybody who stopped smoking cigarettes, but it was very hard for them to stop. Like they were having like fucking real withdrawal. They have to buy like
I don't know if you guys remember a couple years ago, they actually raised the age of tobacco products, and they also started taxing higher for them in California, and that was a huge issue in itself. People were upset about that, and it's like, well, cigarettes kill you, and it's starting it's you don't want to make it accessible for younger people in a younger generation, because then they'll end up smoking their entire lives, but people were upset about that too. So no doubt in my mind, will people riot in the streets if cigarettes become banned?
And I feel like a lot of people think that's like silly or nonsensical, or maybe that we're kind of taking that too far. But I believe it, man. I believe people will mobilize behind cigarettes more than they would behind fucking people's lives.
Oh yeah. It's like that we're extremely pleasure seeking.
Yeah, I can understand the pleasure seeking aspect for sure.
I agree, and I like. Let's say cigarettes were banned. I just watched the whole, not watched, but listened to a whole 3 hour talk on like Jeffrey Dahmer and like his many racist white supremacist acts that he conducted as a like serial killer, and like basically he like fits the criteria for everything in this book. I wanted to read this right here because it justifies and validates what I'm saying in the context of racism, white supremacy. I'm gonna read 2 parts, but I want to break them up.
What page are you on, if you don't mind? Because I kind of want to follow with you if you don't mind. Hello?
151.
All right.
All right. We are now in a position to understand the inadequately explained and inadequately understood concepts of penis envy, castration, anxiety, and the castration complex, all key concepts in the Freudian psychoanalytic edifice. These concepts take on valid applicability in the context of the white supremacy system culture, and that they are related to anxieties, fears, and tensions of the dominant members of the white supremacy culture, the white males, who then project these tensions and fears and their various and sundry forms unto others, white females and black and other non-white males and females. In reality, it is the white male who basically envies the genital power and genetic status of black and other non-white males. And without his guns or other weapons, the white male feels castrated in the presence of black males and females and all other non-white peoples. So yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer definitely envied black men as they were the main people he killed, and he would literally remove their penises and keep them in jars as souvenirs, quote unquote possessing the things that he, felt inadequate about. He also worked in a chocolate factory, so he had an obsession with, like, I guess, black matter and black people and things that are not white. He also was able to like do this by killing people right after the cops had been to his house because they didn't suspect him of being evil and being murderous. He ate every person that he made a victim. He ate parts of them, and when he talks about why he ate them, it's so they could be part of him forever, and like he wanted to eat their souls and all these really things that give us great insight into like how the white psyche um operates. And yeah, there's so much, and like Jeffrey Dahmer is white supremacy.
Uh, I wanted to comment on what Trey said because when we were kind of talking about earlier about the cigarettes being more like feminine and the cigars being more masculine, I kind of see like a little bit of penis envy in that, seeing as like women smoke these cigarettes because they're not quite like men or they want to be like men, but here's like a feminine one for females kind of, you know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I just wanted to add that.
I can see that. Okay. Is it time to move to chapter 12? Maybe you want to have closing comments, closing thoughts on chapter 11.
Oh, I just wanted to end with this. I thought that this was a pretty good real. She said on page 149, she says the white supremacy system slash culture is preoccupied most fundamentally not with profit, but with its genital and genetic status and survival on the planet. I had that part highlighted. I had a conversation recently with somebody, that just basically feels like white supremacy isn't the issue, but it's all these other things that is the issue, which I couldn't agree with. But I feel that that is kind of when we're talking about white supremacy, a lot of people aren't making the distinction that this is about genetic annihilation, not money. Money is what they use to come to kind of affect people. That's their way of preventing genetic annihilation.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people don't really understand that, and I feel like that's should be a definitely a very important concept you understand when you're talking about this, about white supremacy. So That was my
Yeah.
little closing remark.
Yeah, I totally agree that a lot of people say that, oh, we should be a lot of people don't see this like problem as like, white people aren't just, white supremacists because they want all the money. They're white supremacists because they have a literal fear and the means to like prevent their genetic annihilation. And we as like a global collective needs to like become aware of this. This is as important as like economic liberation from them. It's understanding like why this whole system is in place, I believe.
Yeah. I think at the same time, and you don't really, it's like if, rappers start making a whole bunch of money, like suddenly white supremacy doesn't like exist to them, which, isn't true. So I think that's also something important people need to understand. So I think when we're talking to people, we need to try and make people realize that that is at the heart of white supremacy.
I totally agree.
I agree.
Before we move on, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
We can hear you. Are you good?
phone again. Somebody else.
His phone's bugging.
All right, let me just read this. All right, let me just read this real fast. So it's two things. If we're gonna be transitioning, I think it's a good thing to like read and finish on. And I love when she gives these great definitions and simplified ways that are really easy to understand and digest. I'm gonna read two parts. The global white supremacy system is evolved. The global white supremacy system is the evolved methodology of compensation for white male castration fields and anxiety of the fear of white genetic annihilation based upon white genetic insufficiency. This essay illuminates the major fallacy in the Western pattern of perception and thought, the failure, the failure to be able to recognize and decode the whole. Western perceptions are unfortunately limited and fragmented, tending towards ever higher levels of abstraction and isolation. What has been abstracted but never fully and consciously perceiving what has been abstracted in relation to the whole. E.g., guns are always seen in their isolated abstraction, as are balls and smoking objects. The white collective, therefore, must deny the meaning and reality of Africa as its own birthplace and to the point of its original origin in its own civilization. Wow. But yeah, this was really it's a great conclusion. Summarize pretty much everything that she's been talking about. I skipped over some parts, but to me, that's
Yeah, to close off, can we all share something that we liked about the chapter or that we learned from the chapter? I'll start. I really appreciated just learning how like white people have so many like defense mechanisms that they use to help with their like anxieties and insecurities that they have from being white, but they project it onto us as well. Like they participate in it, but they also make sure that we are also participating in it. Like smoking, something that wouldn't exist in this capacity without white people and white supremacy, but it does, and they make sure we participate in it as well. You know.
Yeah, all players welcome.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to say about this chapter was that a note that I learned was this. Well, it's a note that I wrote based on page 149, but I think it sums up pretty nicely. that white people's concern is not with wealth, it is with genetic survival. This seems to be the reason why they feel the need to push forward constantly in order to dominate parts of the world that they haven't conquered yet. And that was my whole understanding from this chapter, is that like their influence must continue. That's why the domination, the whole conquest thing is so big, because there are parts of the world they haven't. I mean, they there are parts of the world that are still putting up resistance. They want to make sure there is no resistance at all. Like they want to eliminate any possibility for resistance to even occur. So whatever they don't have their hands on, I'm sure they're working on a way to fucking get their hands on it. So, that's that for me.
Yeah, I resonate with everything that's been said. And for me, what I would add is the understanding that the crystallization of understanding that in their inadequacy, they'll even commodify it to themselves as well, because of how much money is made around the world from the sports, all of these, the sports, the partaking of smoking, to tobacco smoking, like they rely on the inadequacy for these things to be bought and sold. And I just think it's amazing how they do it to themselves as well as Black people buying it.
Um, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was. I just want to say it again. Unified field theory. Um, if not everything that has been created by Western society is some type of projection of either their like sense of superiority or their like sense of inferiority through their genetic insufficiency. Um, yeah, I learned that it's all connected. Every behavior pattern that is taught and regurgitated and hyper put on display, aka in films, you see most people. I don't remember the last movie I saw that where someone that smoked a cigarette. Every single movie I watched, someone smoking. Um, it's either a cigarette or a pipe or other stuff. It's very very everywhere. It's TV show everywhere. And it's all connected. All these behavior patterns are connected. Everything's connected.
I think for me, I really enjoyed this chapter because it made me think about how ritualistic a lot of things are and how we do things without thinking, just because it's part of like the iconography of America. It's like, I don't know how many times I grew up seeing men smoking and like that was probably at a time when it wasn't even as common as it was in the 50s, etc., when it's like everywhere. So yeah, this chapter just made me think a lot about that. That in chapter 13, just the things that we are normalized to us as kids that we don't even really have any analysis on. And then by the time we're adults, it's just the backdrop. It's not, we don't even think about it as different or anything. So yeah.
It's the perfect evil plan, for real, for real.